Good evening. I'm Chris Plant. There's a lot on deck tonight for the right squad to take on. That's understatement. The Pentagon shut down their family-friendly drag show at the home of the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds out in Nevada. Just as Pride Month is taking off, causing a bit of consternation about that. Plus, former Chicago mayor, the disastrous Lori Lightfoot, found a new job. You'll never guess where it is. Another place that she doesn't belong. It's not as a prison guard. I'll give that much away. And at the top, the House of Representatives last night passed the McCarthy-Biden debt ceiling deal. What a deal it was, too. So why is Sleepy Joe getting the lion's share of the credit in the news media? We'll get into that with you, and a lot more straight ahead. But first, let me introduce the squad. Why don't we do that? So, Democrat political strategist Jason Nichols is with us, and Newsmax host extraordinaire Jen Pellegrino. Also tonight, my friend and pal, the director of the Center for Economic Opportunity at the Independent Women's Forum, Patrice Lee Onwuka. Thank you for being here. And Texas Congressman Pat Fallon, who knows a thing or two about a thing or two. So tonight, Washington's spending spree is just not sustainable. I think any rational person knows that. An overwhelming majority of members of Congress voted in the House to raise the debt ceiling by trillions of dollars, and we don't even know how many trillions of dollars. The bill has been dubbed, ironically, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and it passed by a vote of 314 to 117. It's now headed to the Democrat-controlled Senate, where the Lizard King will take over. And mind you, Republicans control the House of Representatives, of course. 140 of them voted in favor of the legislation. Nobody has won here, if you ask me, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, and certainly not the American people. Republicans allowed an estimated $4 trillion, a very soft number, $4 trillion to be added to our already devastatingly, ridiculously high national debt. All right? And now here we go again. Am I right? With $4 trillion more. Congressman, you voted against the legislation. What don't you like about it?
Well, there are several things not to like. And you know what? I voted for the Limit Save Grow Act because it was going to take the debt to GDP ratio from 118% down to 106%, which is a very good first step because we keep kicking the fiscal can down the road. And there's a financial Armageddon if we don't change our ways. And we need to balance the budget at some point. We are addicted to this kind of deficit spending. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people in Washington are doing it to pander, to get votes, to make sure they win the next election. We need to do what's in the best interest of this country. How about this? Work requirements for folks that are able-bodied and are receiving them welfare benefits. How about the IRS? We don't need 87,000 new IRS agents. Maybe 87,000 new Border Patrol agents, but that would be something to stem that tide because as a small business owner, I know the terror that the IRS can unleash, and half the time they're actually wrong. And then how about student loan forgiveness? Well, actually, just student loan transfer to people that never went to college. That's going to cost $500 billion. I think it's terribly expensive and it's unconstitutional. And these are all left in the bill, but in Limit, Save, Grow, they weren't in there.
Yeah. And a lot of Republicans voted for it. There were more Democrats that voted for it in the House than there were Republicans.
Slightly more, yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. Patrice, this $4 trillion more to the...
Not a good deal for the American people. The congressman said it best, we're just kicking the can down the road here. We've raised the debt ceiling, I think it's 78 times since 1960. Got to stop this reckless spending. And honestly, McCarthy just handed Biden a win on this for 2024, at least on this topic.
And you know what, Jen? It's not even just Democrat or Republican. It's math.
Right.
It's arithmetic. Math. I mean, it's got to be the best long-term interest for this country is to get this fiscal house in order as quickly as possible because we are burning $400 billion a year just on the interest on the debt. Think of the things that we could do and what we can invest in and maybe even give back some money to the American taxpayer
and
if we had that money.
Historically, just as guilty, too.
Yeah, granted. And we're throwing it in a furnace.
Yeah, but we are not dealing with the actual drivers of the debt. I mean, Social Security entitlements, nothing is on the table. And understandably, this was not the vehicle to do that. But I want to see, and I'm looking forward to you and your colleagues starting to really have those conversations about how we deal with those longer term entitlements that are frankly bankrupting us.
Yeah, you have to take on mandatory spending or you're never going to fix the problem.
Yeah, I played audio on my radio show yesterday of Ronald Reagan in 1985 lamenting the fact that we were crossing the $2 trillion threshold. In 1985, right? And look where we are now. It's going so well, don't you think? So Joe Biden is very full of himself these days, of course. from taking credit for the debt deal, which he said he wouldn't negotiate on, and that's okay, to telling tall tales today at the United States Air Force Academy, where he delivered the commencement address. Listen to this.
When I was graduating from high school 300 years ago, I applied to the Naval Academy, and I was picked by the senator.
He was picked by a senator, so you're an Air Force veteran yourself, and you're a pilot, and we all know that this story has been debunked repeatedly, that President Biden has said on a number of occasions that he was, Naval Academy bound, and it's been fact-checked by friendly media. It's just not true, and he keeps saying it.
Chris, he saved the world with Thor. And Captain America as well. He invented the internet with Al Gore.
Right.
Come on, we know these things to be true. And he was also a secret agent with James Bond, the senator from Delaware.
And he was arrested in South Africa with Nelson Mandela, and he was he makes up all kinds of stories. But this is one that has been repeatedly debunked, and he continues to peddle this stuff. You see one of the cadets back there giving a thumbs down. It's unclear whether he was just giving a thumbs down to the Naval Academy or whether he knew that story was fake, so he was giving the commander-in-chief.
He'll be getting an Article 15.
Right, he's going to be in trouble before he gets going. Also, did you see him at the Naval Academy today? He had another Joe Biden moment. He just attempted to walk a few steps from the podium over to his table, and he fell down. He fell down. The poor old guy fell down. I hope he didn't break a hip or anything like that, because there he is. And when he gets up, he points at a non-existent object on the. See, hey, that did it. Somebody get the Secret Service. Go get that.
There was a sandbag there.
And there's a woman. See, that woman looks like Hillary Clinton. You see that woman with the blonde hair and the glasses? Sitting in the first row back there, looks an awful lot like Hillary Clinton. Patrice suggested maybe it's Hillary, and she dropped a box of marbles. Dropped a box of marbles out in front when he started walking away, because she's.
Okay, Jason, listen. If that had been Trump, people would be losing their minds. They would be falling apart. It'd be front page headlines. Guarantee the mainstream legacy media.
I mean, when the president falls,
it
should be concerning, particularly when we have two guys who are octogenarians.
Joe Biden. Well, we haven't seen Trump walk. Trump walked slowly down a ramp. He walked slowly down a slippery ramp. He did not fall. Biden has fallen how many times up the
It took
steps
him
of Air Force
2 hands to pick up and drink a bottle of water. I think this is all ridiculous, honestly.
Listen,
it's
the
all
cognitive
ridiculous.
questions, we've had a lot of questions about Joe Biden's cognitive state. He hasn't taken a test. He's been asked to do so. He's fallen a number of times. There's concern among the American people. Is he fit to serve, God forbid, another 4 years?
I asked one of my colleagues, Chris Smith, Republican from New Jersey. I think he served since 1981. And I asked him, did you know Joe Biden? He said, I know him actually very well. I said, do you see a difference? He said, he's a shadow of his former self. Wow. So this is real. This is not just made up for partisan advantage. It's real, and it's concerning. And he was like Captain Stilwell from Stripes. He's tripped over nothing. It was like, have that removed.
Right.
It was bizarre.
Well, does he
There was
inspire?
a sandbag there. We all saw it. It was literally on camera.
What, a sandbag?
Yeah, it was a little black sandbag. You can see it on camera.
Does he inspire trust as the commander-in-chief when he's falling down on the job?
It seems like he's getting things done. He got the debt deal done. He's gotten he's gotten lots of he got the CHIPS Act over China. He's gotten lots of things done.
Yeah.
And Republicans are up in arms. If they were so good and he was so cognitively injured, then perhaps they'd have more wins. But they're not winning. They didn't win a lot in 2022.
That's not actually what we're talking about.
They didn't win in
right
2020.
Now. For the moment at least, with Lunch Bucket Joe, that is that. Coming up, the battle for transparency over the president's potential involvement in a bribery scheme. This is going on and on. We're going to discuss with the squad when we come back. House Republicans appear to be moving forward with their efforts to hold in contempt of Congress, and have a vote involving the FBI director, Christopher Wray. Jen Pellegrino, What's going on with the FBI?
That is a great question, Chris. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer amplifying his calls to hold Wray in contempt of Congress. The effort growing stronger after Comer rejected the Bureau's offer to view a document claiming Biden took a $5 million bribe from a foreign national in exchange for policy decisions while he was vice president. Now, Comer issued a subpoena for the paperwork, but the FBI still hasn't handed it over. The FBI also issued a statement questioning whether the document is factually sound, saying, quote, documenting the information does not validate it, establish its credibility, or weigh it against other information verified by the FBI. All this after the two spoke over the phone about possibly releasing the document, which the FBI confirmed exists during yesterday's talk. So they'll allow them to view the document, but they won't release it. And then the White House responding to this today. This is Ian Sams of the White House calling it a silly charade, saying it's a reminder that these investigations are political stunts, not meant to uncover facts, but to spread thin innuendo to attack the president and get himself media attention and the Fox News spotlight, he says. Congressman, I feel like if they have nothing to hide here, they could put this to rest quickly. You've got the campaign coming up. There's a lot of situations in the Biden White House not looking good for him. But this is something they could easily, put behind them if they could just be transparent about everything.
Thank you, Jen. Because you know what? If you have nothing to hide, we all get accused of things. And some of them are ridiculous and they're frivolous. So I just say, I got nothing to hide. You can look at my bank statements, that kind of thing. Why hasn't Joe Biden done that? In fact, why in 2019, when he was running for president, did he say, he built this firewall. He said, I don't know what my son does. I've never met any of his business associates. We've now come to find out that that's completely false, very untrue. He's met with dozens, scores of Hunter's associates. We don't know what the Biden family does. What does their business do? We know what Trump's business did, right? But we don't know what they did, what service or what good they provided. Why did they generate 170 SARs, suspicious activity reports, because of their financial stuff? Why so many shell companies? $10 million from foreign nationals directly to Hunter and the Biden family. And we haven't even subpoenaed their bank records because they'll just lawyer up and go on beyond November of 2024. So if you want to clear this up and never want to talk about it again, Joe Biden, just say, you know what, here are my bank records, here's Hunter's bank records, and, have at it.
Exactly.
Well, interestingly, this is not a classified document, so there isn't anything that's so damaging that it cannot be publicly released. So I would love to see this publicly released. Interestingly, also, I think we finally have a tacit admission that this that what happened here, this document, this interview, whoever came forward with these allegations, that there is something to it, that the document does exist. Because I think Christopher Wray had kind of been denying it for the past month, and finally saying, "Oh well, you guys can come into a SCIF, and you can come and see it behind closed doors." Well, if there's nothing to see, then what can you come and see? So I think we're actually getting closer to something, Congressman. I don't know if you feel differently, but
yeah, because it's just it's somebody coming forward with an accusation. Now we've had information that it's a highly credible source.
Yeah.
But if you didn't do anything wrong, what do you care? Just see it. It's an FD 1023. It's just something they fill out when somebody comes in and makes a claim.
And you mentioned the suspicious the SARs, suspicious activity. I can speak.
They are hard
suspicious
to say.
Activity reports. And from the Treasury Department, they stonewalled the Congress. The Treasury Department did on these SARs. And now we're getting the FBI and the Justice Department stonewalling. It stinks, doesn't it? It just, this is how guilty people behave.
Well, so first of all, I think that the point about verifying the information is important because they don't want a repeat of the Steele dossier. They don't want a repeat of having documents that aren't verified put out into the public sphere where people are saying that Russian prostitutes are urinating on people and all these kinds of fake news things. You don't want that about your president either way, whichever party you're from. So I think it's important for them to verify information. Now, James Comer, is my understanding, is that he's already seen it. Now, in terms of the weaponization of contempt of Congress, people have used this on both sides for far too long. Whether it was Eric Holder, they did it to Bill Barr, and now they're doing it to Christopher Wray. I think that that's actually a bad tactic. I think since he knows the information, he's seen the information, maybe he can question witnesses, subpoena witnesses, call them and question them on the merits of the document, if that's the path that they want to take
Why don't
forward.
we have the FBI behave like an American law enforcement agency and respect the Constitution and respect the Congress and the separations of power and hand over the damn document. And you say it's not the weaponization of anything here. It's a tool that's available to them to try to extract the truth from an obstructionist, and obviously, and I think you agree, obviously obstructionist FBI that is not cooperating with the Congress. And it all goes back to the Biden family. And you talked about Russian hookers and the Steele dossier. Steele dossier was completely phony. It was
That's my point.
Front page news every day for years and years. And there were Russian hookers. In fact, they're in the photos released today, another 10,000 photos of Hunter Biden.
Yeah,
the Hunter Biden. But they're Hunter Biden's
We
Russian
can slam
hookers.
Hunter Biden all we want. I'm down to slam Hunter Biden.
You know what didn't cost?
Nobody cares about Hunter Biden.
Hillary Clinton, the Democratic
It goes to
Committee-
Joe Biden.
The Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton spent $1,065,000 for the Steele dossier. Donald Trump didn't spend a penny on this FT 1023.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, there are nothing but differences here. And that's that, at least for the time being. So the Defense Department, you remember them, is taking a step back to kick off Pride Month. It's Pride Month beginning today. That's next on The Right Squad. Today's red hot story. The Democrat Party's alphabet mafia's favorite month is upon us now. It's June 1st. It's Pride Month, and corporate America is pandering, of course, to the LGBTQ plus mob. Has just begun. Really, we're only scratching the surface. And our military, the United States military, they kind of, for a moment here, appear to have come to their senses and dialed it back a little bit. The allegedly family-friendly drag show that was originally set to take place today at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, home of the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, the wonderful Thunderbirds. But in an unexpected turn of events, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, announced at the last minute the event will no longer be taking place at the behest of General Thoroughly Modern Milley and, of course, Secretary Lloyd Austin. So, this comes after the public scrutiny. Some alarms were raised by Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's always a ton of fun. And here was Congressman Matt Gaetz catching Secretary Austin flat-footed back in March.
Who funded these things, Mr. Secretary?
Listen, drag shows are not something that the Department of Defense supports or funds. So.
But wait, why are they happening on military bases? I just showed you the evidence. Why are they happening?
I will say again, this is not something that we support or fund.
Well, you're an Air Force officer. You fly airplanes, and you're a member of Congress, so you're on the hook for this one. What is going on?
I want my military to be cohesive, and I want it to be lethal and be able to project power.
Right.
And it's diplomacy by other means, right? Unfortunately, you have this with these drag shows. It's very divisive. And it's not bringing people together. And I don't understand the necessity. It's just like, stay in your lane. Just be the military. And you know what? Consenting adults can do whatever they want. They can have whatever shows they want. Because if you believe in liberty, I do. I'm a big, liberty guy. Then go ahead and knock yourself out. And it doesn't mean that because you're gay, I want to harm you in any way.
Right.
In fact, I'm probably just going to ask you where to get a good deal on furniture and track lighting.
Right.
Just let's have a little fun and love
Good
each other.
restaurant, everything's fine.
Do your thing. But to sit there and have the federal government get involved in this stuff, now you got Pride Month. Was it next month going to be Tall Month? And then we're going to have Short Guy Month, and we're going to have Ginger Month for people with red hair. I mean, at some point, you got to draw the line and just go, why don't we just move forward?
Those wouldn't be divisive enough, I think. But the thing here is, it was family friendly.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Patrice, you go to bring the kids to the family friendly drag show.
I would bring my kids to church, which is family friendly, except for the churches that have drag shows now in the pulpits, but that's scary. But I think the problem for the military is that this does not help recruitment. And that's one of the big weaknesses right now. Coming out of Military Appreciation Month, I think it was just last month, this is not the way to get people in. Having influencers who by day are in the uniform and by night are wearing more makeup than I am right now is not a way to get the brave warriors that we need in. So I'm glad that the military took a step back on this. Kudos to Representative Gates for calling this out and putting it on full display. And I do want to know who is funding this. And I guarantee you it's a lot of the activist groups that are sending money and pressuring corporations and the public sector on this stuff.
But also, to be fair, what do you think Moscow's thinking about this in Beijing? Because we can out-pronoun them, you know, we can out-drag show them. How about out-flying them and out-fighting them and intimidating to the point where, you know, deterring them to where they won't invade, I don't know, like sovereign nations like Ukraine?
You know, I mean, Jason, you know, the United States military is supposed to stay ready, so if we call upon them to break things and kill people, they'll be very good at that, and it will be done quickly. But this is ridiculous, right? I
just don't know that there was a market for it, so that I don't necessarily think they should have done that, because I don't think on military bases people are clamoring for a drag show. If they are, that's different, but I'm not so sure that that's the case. I would say that we still have the most lethal fighting force in the world by far. And if you mentioned Moscow, you know, you're in all the meetings, you know for a fact that 5% of our military capability has literally destroyed 50% of the Russians' military capability. And they're being beaten by a force that they outnumber 1 to 5, and then they had to conscript other people. They had to bring in mercenary groups in order to fight the war, and they're still arguably losing. So we have a fine fighting force. A lot of my friends are military veterans. You're a military veteran, and I think we're friends now. So again, I just want to make sure that we give our military its credit, we give our veterans their credit, and we give our active duty members their credit.
Agree with you, but can't lose sight of the target here. This is a major distraction. The more this continues, it's going to snowball. And as you said, Congressman, Moscow, China, they love to see it. They love to see that they're prioritizing this wokeness within our military right now.
And if called upon to do so, our guys can also put on a show. You know, they can put on a show. Well, so there's another head spinner I want to get to here. For day one of Pride Month, Glamour magazine in the United Kingdom, that's English people, you know, they just featured a transgender pregnant person on the cover. Take a look at the magazine cover here. And you got to sort these things out because, you know, the left. But the translation apparently is that this is a pregnant woman who thinks that she's a man, has grown a beard, but was impregnated by an actual man and is now pregnant, and they've got that on the cover of the magazine because they're convincing us, and this keeps coming up, doesn't it, that men can get pregnant and give birth to babies, and that's day one of Pride Month.
You know what what first indicator is that you're not a man? When you're pregnant.
Yeah, that's a pretty good clue.
That's a dead giveaway.
Honestly, it's nutty out there, isn't it? And that's that. Coming up, Ivy League universities. Always good for laughs. Yeah, I started laughing right away. Where failed Democratic leaders go to collect big salaries for doing not very much. We'll tell you about the former Chicago mayor, the disastrous Lori Lightfoot, and her new job coming up next. The woman who is thankfully now the former mayor of Chicago, Illinois, Lori Lightfoot, was fired by the voters earlier this year. But guess what? She's got a new job. She's going to be teaching. Where? Where's she going to be teaching, you might ask? Well, naturally at Harvard. She's going to Harvard in the fall. I think maybe that Elizabeth Warren chair is open. Of course she's teaching, and you guess what she's teaching? The class that she's teaching is called Health Policy and Leadership. Now, where else would you go for leadership skills other than Lori Lightfoot? In Chicago, done such a great job there at a higher death rate than Iraq for the years that she was mayor. And she's going to draw on her experiences steering Chicago, leading Chicago through COVID and all of the other madness. This, of course, is the same Chicago mayor who sided with the teachers union and kept the schools closed, which, as we now know, led to catastrophic outcomes for children. And Harvard, you know, it's Harvard. Her record of leadership, in quotation marks. Leadership includes nearly 3,000 people murdered in Chicago during her time in City Hall. You know, why do these institutions, why do Harvard and these alleged institutions of higher learning, they find these failed Democratic politicians and they hire them, they pay them lots of money to teach. You know, Lightfoot will be a senior fellow. She says, isn't that sexist, to be a senior fellow? At the same program, they hired the failed mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio. You know, it's Democrats fail up, don't they? And last year. Now, you're an academic, you're a professor, you're a PhD, Harvard Schmarvard. Right, but now Lori Lightfoot and Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio, I mean, these are not two of the biggest loser mayors in the history of the country.
I think we've had lots of loser mayors. Part of that is because being mayor of a major city, I will say, is the worst job in America. It's worse than being president. It's worse than, I think being mayor of a big city is a no-win situation. You're always begging the state for money. You know, you're trying to fund teachers and lawyers and you don't have the revenue to do so. But I'm not going to make excuses necessarily for Lori Lightfoot. I didn't support Lori Lightfoot either. I think it's a little rich, though, to say, oh, Chicago is so incredibly violent when the third most violent city over her tenure in Chicago was Anchorage, Alaska, run by Republicans. You can go to Tulsa, you can go to Bakersfield.
Where 5 people were killed.
You know, to Jacksonville, which is one of the reasons why Jacksonville is now Democrat. So this idea, I think we do have, as I said before, we have a violence issue in our country, but to blame it and make it a partisan issue when I can point to the fact that New York State is a whole lot less violent than somewhere like Oklahoma, I think, you know, we need to get away from the partisan rhetoric.
Well, he's great with the statistics. He's very well prepared. That's good stuff. They're disastrous mayors and they get jobs at Harvard. You know, that's the thing. Right?
It's all partisan on college campuses these days. I mean, you have conservatives go to speak on the campus and they're run off by these protesters. Right. I mean, that's where things are headed right now. I mean, you see Hillary Clinton. I think she got a teaching gig at Columbia not too long ago, and it's just amazing that you don't see this happening with conservatives on these college campuses, and they want one type of thought. And that's it.
Well, you remember Hillary Clinton, for that matter, she even made a video about her going to teach Isn't it hilarious that she'd teach diplomacy anywhere? You know, that she'd throwing ashtrays at her husband's head at the head of Secret Service agents. She was Secretary of State to Barack Obama, whose administration bombed more countries than any administration since World War II, a minor detail in the scheme of things. But, you know, when you're a Democrat, it all washes off. It all comes off in the wash because it never becomes a part of your permanent record, does it?
Well, she's going to teach health, I think, in leadership. Well, Chicago's sick, so she's not really too healthy. And as far as leadership goes, the people of Chicago fired her. And wasn't she the same mayor that had, like, the apartheid press conferences where people of color only kind of thing? Is that what, I mean, maybe that's why Harvard hired her. I used to think, I remember when the left hated apartheid. Remember that?
Yeah, right. Well, now, you know, segregation, Columbia University with racially segregated graduations. And it's true, Lori Lightfoot said that she would not do interviews with journalists that were white, which is very
That's not e pluribus unum, and that's what it says when I go to work on that statue, Lady Liberty, up on top of the dome.
Listen, I'm not against politicians, failed politicians, teaching at colleges and universities. If they're teaching why they failed and how someone can avoid their failures. I mean, this is a lady who took some young youth off the street, had them working for her campaign, you know, getting extra credit for school when this was not supposed to be happening. And then, you know, her last salve, instead of saying, okay, I can improve crime, she's out there dancing to the drumbeat of some Native Americans. I mean, I don't think, I'm fine with failure if they're going to learn real lessons. This is just putting politicians in a place where some wide-eyed students will lick their wounds and make them feel better about
Well, it's part of the
themselves.
Democrat Party machine. I mean, from the Democrat Party to academia, her next job will doubtless be in media, probably with NBC News or something. And that's that. Imagine being on a debate team, being disqualified for being a conservative. That's happening to high schools. This is at Debate Society in actual high schools. We're going to discuss this coming up next. You won't believe it. Imagine being so darn sensitive that even a high school debate team offends you. It's happening. Radical activists, debate judges are no longer allowing high schoolers to talk about certain topics or reference certain phrases in debates and tournaments, or they're going to lose. They lose automatically. That is, conservative-leaning topics, of course. A debate coach named James Fishbeck wrote this piece in the Free Press. He said, at high school debates, debate is no longer allowed. At national tournaments, judges are making their stances clear. Students who argue capitalism can reduce poverty or Israel has a right to exist and defend itself will lose automatically, no questions asked. That's that's high school now. Before we even get to college, we're doing it in high school. And if you say Israel has right to exist, has right to defend itself, you're automatically out. This is, there's a great old saying, I may disagree with what you have to say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. That's a great American value, right?
No, I agree 100%. There's no reason why we shouldn't have those discussions and debates. And one of the things about debate is that you are learning the skills of debate. You're not actually, you don't necessarily have to agree with the side that you're debating. It's about critical thinking and learning how to actually engage in civil discourse and debate. So I actually think that that's really problematic, if true. The one thing that I would say is that pejorative statements shouldn't be allowed. We shouldn't allow people to insult other people in a formal debate. And the other thing is, conservatives are for debate, and I totally agree. Then why are they not for, or why are they allowing for academic concepts like anti-racism or certain books like The Bluest Eye, which was a really important Toni Morrison book? Why are they banning those? Those should open up the conversation. The congressman was saying earlier about opening up the conversation, having actual debate, actual discussions on these things. But yet, there are people around the country, conservatives, that want to ban these concepts instead of actually discussing them and developing young people's critical thinking skills.
What people take issue with is that the entire curriculum becomes a, whitey bad, everybody else a victim, and every book reinforces the same radical left wing. It goes on constantly, and you know perfectly well that these curricula are jam-packed and overweighted with that. And in the case of these high school,
well, then fix the curriculum. You don't have to ban. You don't have to ban the concepts.
That's what they're doing, saying let's have some balance in the
but
books,
they're banning
in the books that you select.
The books and the
they're
concepts.
saying let's not have every single one of those books in the same course in the same year for the same students. In the case of these high school students, the judges post what they call paradigms before a debate. Of what they can expect. Here's what you can expect in the debate. So here's a paradigm of a judge named Lila Lavender. Lila Lavender, it could be her real name, saying, before anything else, I'm a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, making her position clear at least. I assume it's a woman. I cannot check the revolutionary proletarian sciences at the door when I'm judging. I will no longer evaluate and thus even vote for rightist, capitalist, imperialist positions and arguments. So that's
rather telling.
It is rather telling, I think.
I support Mao, who murdered probably more people than anyone else in history.
That's right.
And we're talking Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao.
That's right.
And then if you're right of center, you lose.
That's right.
Wow, that's fairness.
You're not invited to debate. You can't say your piece because she's a Maoist and
the tolerant left.
Why is she a judge?
Yeah.
That's my thing. What is the criteria for making people judges? The criteria should be your ability to analyze what the students are saying and get to, Jason, to your point about how they're using critical thought, how they're articulating their ideas, not about the content itself and being judgmental about the content itself. That allows them, if you have the right judges, who I'm sure there are Marxists who would be happy to see a debate where maybe a student wins on the content on their ideas, but they're more concerned about how they're delivering that. To me, that's a question about who's being selected.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Another judge named Kriti Sharma writes about the same situation. Things that will cause you to automatically lose, including misgendering someone repeatedly. You can do it once, apparently. Referring to undocumented immigrants as illegals. You can't do that. You'll be automatically disqualified. And things, like she dislikes, anything that she dislikes. Men talking over a female debater, and of course, climate change deniers. So they won't be
failing our
allowed.
youth here. I mean,
Well, we definitely are.
if they can't have a conversation at this stage in high school, you look at now, if they, are offended by something. We talked yesterday about the abortion clinic in Baltimore,
right.
and these were actually the Planned Parenthood it was, and these pro-life supporters out there that were beaten for having a debate with this young thug. That's what it leads to, is violence down the road with a lot of these people, because they can't have those debates like we do every night on this program.
Intolerance. They're teaching intolerance and insufferable and violent intolerance. And the only thing not to be tolerated is intolerance, right? Old French leftists saying. And that's that. Next up, the Republican field for 2024 is about to grow. It continues to grow, isn't it? Is there room for more?
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for.
It's time for the Squadcast, where the squad and I give our predictions on the hot topic of the day. Tonight's talker is the ever-expanding 2024 Republican field for the presidency of the United States. The list of Republican candidates who will try to kick Joe Biden out of the White House and take his job and his house is about to grow again. Former New Jersey governor, the dancing bear, Chris Christie. He's talking about launching his campaign next Tuesday in New Hampshire, according to multiple reports. The next day, former Vice President Mike Pence is expected to officially throw his hat in the ring, too. And we may also soon find out if New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu is going to jump in. And that probably won't stop there. There will likely be more. Jason, I know you're hot. I know you're hot to go on this one.
Yeah, no, I've been waiting for this topic the entire time. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be really interesting and must-see TV. First of all, you're going to see Pence have to connect himself to the Trump administration, but also distance himself from the Trump administration. And he's going to have to talk about January 6th with Donald Trump standing right next to him. That's going to be must-see TV. In addition, that's if Trump debates. The other thing is, as I said, I think yesterday, Chris Christie is not afraid of Donald Trump. Those other people are afraid. They're scared. Mike Tyson used to say when he got in the ring, he just looking at guys' eyes and he'd see fear, and then he's like, I got this guy beaten. I think Chris Christie is going to be the one guy, because he knows he's not going to win. He has some money. He has a super PAC, apparently. So he knows he's not going to win. Part of this is to take on Donald Trump, who I think he thinks treated him poorly. And it's going to be interesting. He doesn't care about the crowd. He doesn't care about Trump. He's going to go directly after him, whereas everybody else is going to avoid that because they're afraid of the MAGA base.
What a crazy line of work this is, this politics thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. I'm just curious to see if Tucker Carlson actually hosts a debate on Twitter, as we've heard could possibly happen. I think Elon would have to work out some kinks in order for that to happen. But listen, get out the popcorn, though, because there's nothing better than watching Trump on a debate stage. He can go up against anybody. He's not afraid. Chris Christie's just an ankle biter. Not concerned about him, but Trump's going to be great.
So much of it is a television show at this point, isn't it? And it's like the Biggest Loser, or whatever. You get the rose, you get the date at the end.
Well, I hope it's not the Biggest Loser for the Republicans. But what do you got? You got Christie, Pence, Sununu. Is it a list of people that are entering the presidential race, or better stated, a list of people that are never going to be president?
Yeah.
Those are also Rands. They're third stringers. They're not going to ever start, and we know that. This is a two-person race right now. And it's DeSantis is that heavyweight, and you got Trump, and who's going to prevail? Because all those people will be out of this race by January.
Well, I'm actually looking for who's going to drop out before the first debate. I actually think we're going to start losing some people. I look at Nikki Haley, and I love her. She's a great lady. I would not vote for her probably as president unless she was really the only person. Let's just see. But I think that it's going to be hard for her to stand out on the debate stage. Vivek, it's going to be hard for him to stand on the debate stage. And money, campaign ground ground folks, it's going to be hard for these smaller, well-intentioned folks to be able to attract the money and the ground that they need.
Ramaswamy could stand out because he has not criticized Trump. Trump has actually put out statements in favor of him, saying, hey, look, he's climbing in the polls, obviously creeping up on DeSantis, so that's good for Trump. But I think he's somebody that could sneak up and be a potential VP candidate.
He's a very smart guy. He's very good on his feet.
He's very well spoken.
My money's on Asa Hutchinson.
Yeah, Asa Fever. We got Asa Fever.
Does anybody here have anybody that's been, anybody that's excited that Nikki Haley's in the race, or that's excited that Mike Pence is about to announce, or Sununu? I don't know anybody.
Like, there are people excited about Tim Scott.
No, Tim Scott's different.
Maybe
Tim
Ralph
Scott
Norman,
someday.
he came out and endorsed Nikki Haley, which I was surprised.
Who did?
Ralph Norman, South Carolina
Oh,
Congressman.
really?
Yeah.
Nikki Haley. All right.
Yep.
Well, Tim Scott is a guy that maybe someday down the road could be president of the United States. All these other people.
Or great
also
on a VP.
Yeah, a VP.
And a lot of it is for VP, and a lot of it is, some of them are for book deals. Let's face it, or just get their face out there and go on television because
I'd like to announce right now on this show that
it's all a terrible television show. And that's that. Special thanks to the squad tonight, a wonderful squad, Jason Nichols and Jen Pellegrino, as well as Patrice Leonwuka and Texas Congressman Pat Fallon. Big salute there. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Greg Kelly Reports starts right now.